The human ambassador, Jonathan Cade, stood in the middle of the Elari royal court, staring in disbelief at the glowing figure before him. The alien princess, Selara, radiated an energy that was impossible to describe. She seemed to shine without light, her presence filling the vast chamber with a quiet intensity. Every Elari noble in the room bowed, their eyes sharp and calculating, but all of Jonathan's attention was fixed on her. "Jonathan Cade," Selara said, her voice melodic but firm, echoing in the high-ceilinged chamber. "I am offering you a choice that no human has ever received. You may select any bride you desire from my people, any one of them. The choice is yours alone." Now a princess, one of the most powerful individuals in the galaxy, was offering him something unimaginable, the choice of a bride, any bride from her world. It sounded like a gift from the gods, but Jonathan could not shake the knot of unease in his stomach. This was no ordinary selection. The brides were more than companions, they were symbols of power, intelligence, and influence. Choosing the wrong one could insult the princess, anger the nobles, and perhaps even spark a political crisis between Earth and the Elari. Jonathan's mind raced. He had seen the candidates once before, during a brief ceremony in the garden. Some were breathtaking, their appearances almost otherworldly even by alien standards. Others were less striking, some with unusual physical traits or disabilities that made them seem less desirable by Elari society. Even then, he remembered a quiet girl standing at the edge of the garden, her hands folded, her posture modest, her eyes scanning the group with cautious curiosity. No one had paid her much attention. The others had laughed at her when she stumbled during a dance, and some nobles had whispered cruelly among themselves. She had not spoken much, but there was something steady in her gaze, a quiet intelligence that caught Jonathan off guard. He shook his head, trying to clear the thought. It was not time to make a decision yet. He had to consider the implications, the politics, and the consequences. "Ambassador Cade," Selara continued, "the choice is not trivial. Each of my people embodies certain qualities. Some are skilled in diplomacy, others in science, strategy, or art. You may take your time, but know this, the court will watch your decision closely." He was used to negotiations, treaties, and careful diplomacy, but nothing had prepared him for this. His advisors, human and alien, stood behind him, waiting for him to act. Dr. Lena Cross, the chief human liaison, nudged him subtly. "You don't need to choose now," she whispered. "Take your time." One wrong step, one poor decision, and it could ruin everything humanity had built in this first contact. The Elari court began the formal procession, presenting each candidate before Jonathan. One by one, the brides approached, each displaying a different set of qualities. Some were elegant and commanding, clearly trained in politics and ceremony. Others were creative, their presence marked by vibrant energy or artistic skill. The court watched Jonathan's reactions carefully, judging not only his choice but his judgment as a representative of humanity. And then she stepped forward, the quiet girl from the garden. Her hair shimmered like dark metal under the chamber lights, and her eyes, large and thoughtful, met his. There was no pretense in her posture, no attempt to dazzle or charm. She simply stood, calm and composed, observing him as if she were trying to understand him rather than impress him. Jonathan felt a strange pull, something he could not explain. He did not know her name, nor did he know anything about her abilities or skills. Yet in that moment he sensed a strength he had not seen in the others. She did not rely on appearances, tricks, or charm. She relied on herself. The next candidates passed, one by one, some bowing gracefully, others attempting elaborate displays of skill. Jonathan felt the pressure from the court intensify. Whispers traveled through the room, barely audible but unmistakable. Some nobles were surprised that he had lingered, focusing on the girl who had received so little attention before. Finally, the court quieted again, waiting for him to speak. Jonathan cleared his throat, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts in his head. "I choose her," he said simply. "The one no one wanted." Whispers erupted into murmurs, and the eyes of nobles widened in shock. Some frowned, others laughed softly, clearly thinking he had made a mistake. The girl blinked, surprised, then her lips curved into a small, cautious smile. She stepped forward, her hands folded, but her eyes shone with a spark of disbelief and hope. Selara regarded Jonathan carefully, her expression unreadable. "Interesting," she said. "You have chosen a path few would dare. You understand, Ambassador, that this choice carries weight beyond personal preference. This court will test both of you." That belief had guided humans for centuries, through exploration, survival, and innovation. Perhaps it could guide him here as well. As the princess signaled the end of the ceremony, the court dispersed. Jonathan and his chosen bride were left alone in a quiet chamber, the echo of the court's whispers still lingering. She extended her hand to him. I didn't expect this," she said softly. Her voice was musical but not practiced like the others. There was sincerity in it, a honesty that felt grounding in the midst of alien formality. Jonathan took her hand gently. "I choose you," he said again. "Not because others do not want you, but because I see something they do not. I see strength, courage, and intelligence. You are not defined by what others think of you." Some nobles treated the bride with thinly veiled contempt, while others were openly hostile. Jonathan's advisors tried to caution him, warning that the union could create tension between humans and the Elari. But Jonathan remained firm. He had chosen her not for politics or appearances, but because he recognized the value of her character. And in doing so, he hoped to show the Elari that humans judged differently, that compassion, insight, and courage could surpass societal expectations. At night, in the quiet of the ambassador's chambers, Jonathan spoke with his bride about her past. She revealed that she had been overlooked and underestimated her entire life, treated as less than the others because of minor physical differences and a quiet personality. But despite that, she had spent her life learning, observing, and understanding the world around her. She had skills no one appreciated, knowledge and insight that often went unnoticed. Jonathan listened, fascinated. He realized that humans and aliens shared a common struggle, the tendency to judge by appearances rather than merit. But humans had an advantage. They had learned, through survival and exploration, to value ingenuity, courage, and character. That perspective had guided him to make the choice he had, and he hoped it would guide their future together. The following morning, the court resumed its observation. The bride walked beside Jonathan, her head held high, though whispers followed her like shadows. Jonathan noticed that she moved differently now, more confidently, her quiet intelligence shining through even when others tried to dismiss her. He understood then that their union was more than a personal choice. It was a statement. It was a demonstration of humanity's values, empathy, insight, and courage. It challenged the Elari to look beyond tradition and question their own judgments. Over the next weeks, Jonathan and his bride began to learn about each other's worlds. He taught her about human history, human resilience, and human problem-solving. She shared with him the complexities of Elari society, the science and philosophy that had guided her people for centuries. They discovered that despite differences in physiology and culture, they shared a mutual respect for learning, curiosity, and courage. The court continued to watch closely, waiting for missteps. Jonathan's advisors warned him that the political pressure was immense, that every action would be scrutinized. But he remained resolute. His choice was not a mistake. It was a reflection of humanity's unique strength. And with each passing day, he saw his bride growing into her own power, quietly but undeniably demonstrating that the qualities that others had ignored were precisely the ones that mattered most. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Jonathan watched the stars reflected in a pool of water. He thought of Earth, of the long journey that had brought humanity to this moment. And he realized that the choice he had made was more than personal. It was a bridge between worlds. By seeing value where others did not, by trusting in the unseen strengths of another, humans had the power to teach even the most advanced civilizations about courage, empathy, and vision. The bride paused beside him, her eyes reflecting both fear and determination. Do you really think we can make them understand?" she asked. Jonathan placed his hand gently on hers. "They will understand, not immediately and not all at once. But they will see the truth, that strength is not always loud and that courage can come from the quietest places. That is something humans have always known. And now it is something we will show them." But together they had chosen a different way, a way guided not by fear, tradition, or appearances, but by insight, courage, and humanity. And in that choice he saw the first spark of something larger than himself, a demonstration of what humans could teach the universe. The night deepened, and the stars glimmered above them. Jonathan knew the challenges had only just begun, but he felt ready. With his bride at his side, he felt the quiet power of humanity, ready to face whatever the Elari and the universe might throw at them. For in the quiet strength of the one no one wanted, Jonathan had found something extraordinary. And in that discovery, he understood a simple truth. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in what everyone desires, but in what others fail to see. The days after Jonathan announced his choice passed slowly. yet the pressure in the Ilari court never eased. Every hallway he walked through, every room he entered, seemed to echo with the whispers of nobles who could not hide their disapproval. Some looked at him with disbelief, others with thinly veiled amusement. The bride, the quiet girl no one had noticed, walked beside him with growing confidence, but the weight of the court's judgment pressed on her as heavily as it did on Jonathan. Jonathan noticed it immediately. Even small gestures from the nobles carried meaning. Averted eyes, murmured conversations, or subtle, dismissive nods. Some of the more influential Ilari openly questioned his judgment, their voices polite but sharp with condescension. "Do you truly understand the consequences of your choice?" One noble, a tall Ilari with hair that shimmered like liquid silver, asked Jonathan during a formal council meeting. "This union is more than personal preference. It will affect alliances, politics, and the perception of humanity across our empire." More than anyone, he understood that the decision he had made went beyond attraction or curiosity. It was a statement. It was a demonstration that humans judged by more than appearances, that they could see potential where others saw weakness. "I understand completely," he said calmly, "and I am confident in my choice. The qualities I see in my bride, her intelligence, courage, and insight, will prove invaluable not only to me but to humanity and the Ilari alike." "How can you claim such confidence?" "And I believe in her abilities." The alien flora glowed softly in the twilight, casting iridescent reflections across the smooth marble pathways. She looked around nervously, still adjusting to the attention and subtle hostility that followed her everywhere. "They don't like me," she said softly, almost to herself. "I can feel it. I can see their thoughts, the way they look at me." "Do you really think I can handle this?" "I want to believe that," she whispered. "But I've never been treated as someone important before. I don't even know how to act around people like them. We survive because we rely on our strengths, not on others' approval." Each session was a subtle test, designed to see if she could hold her own in a world that had already decided she was unworthy. Some of the other candidates watched with silent disdain, confident that she would fail. Jonathan observed quietly, offering guidance only when necessary. He could see the fear in her eyes at first, but also a spark of determination. Every time she stumbled, he reminded her of her strengths. Every time she hesitated, he encouraged her to trust her instincts. The first real test came during a debate on interstellar trade policies. A group of influential Ilari nobles presented complex scenarios, expecting her to falter. The bride listened carefully, her mind racing as she analyzed the situation. Then she spoke. Her voice was calm, measured, and confident, presenting solutions that balanced practicality with fairness. The court fell silent. The nobles exchanged glances, clearly surprised. Jonathan felt a surge of pride. Here was someone who had been underestimated her entire life, proving that judgment based on appearances or status could be dangerously flawed. "That is an unexpected perspective," one noble said finally. "You may have underestimated her." The bride moved carefully at first, aware that any misstep would be noted and perhaps ridiculed. Yet she adapted quickly, learning techniques that were foreign to her experience, combining her innate intelligence with careful observation. By the end of the session, she had earned grudging respect, though whispers of doubt still lingered in the shadows. Meanwhile, Jonathan faced a different kind of challenge. Human and Ilari advisors debated endlessly about the wisdom of his choice. Some suggested he had been reckless, that his decision could create tension between Earth and the Ilari. Others saw the potential for a deeper alliance, impressed by his faith in her abilities. Jonathan knew he could not appease everyone. His choice was not about politics or appearances. It was about trust, insight, and humanity's unique ability to recognize value where others did not. One evening, the bride confided in him privately. They walked along a balcony overlooking the palace grounds, the twin moons casting silver light across the alien landscape. "Jonathan," she said hesitantly, "I want to do well, but I am afraid. They see me as weak, unworthy. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong here at all. Your value is not in their approval, but in what you do, the choices you make, and the courage you show." Social events, political discussions, and formal ceremonies, all designed to test her and by extension Jonathan, were constant. The court watched every move, every word, every glance. Some nobles were openly hostile, attempting to trip them up, provoke arguments, or force errors. Others merely observed, skeptical but quietly curious. Through it all, Jonathan noticed a change. The bride grew more confident with each passing day. Her voice was steadier, her movements more assured, and her insight sharper. She began to anticipate questions, offer solutions before they were requested, and even subtly influence the opinions of minor nobles. Slowly, the whispers of doubt shifted, replaced with murmurs of respect, though many still remained critical. One particularly difficult session involved a simulated crisis. A rogue faction of Elari diplomats was attempting to undermine a key alliance. The challenge required negotiation, strategy, and quick thinking. The bride stepped forward, analyzing the situation and proposing a solution that balanced risk and diplomacy. Jonathan could see the nobles' surprise at her performance. Some had expected her to fail, yet here she was, solving problems with intelligence and calm reasoning. After the session, Jonathan spoke with her privately. "Do you see?" he asked. "This is what I knew you could do. You are not defined by what others think of you. You are defined by what you can accomplish, by your strength, your insight, and your courage." Some influential nobles had begun plotting more direct tests designed not only to challenge her abilities, but to test Jonathan's judgment and resolve. One evening, while reviewing documents in the ambassador's chambers, Jonathan received a discreet message. A faction within the court was planning a scheme to publicly humiliate the bride, hoping to force Jonathan to reconsider his choice. The details were unclear, but the intent was evident. If the bride failed in front of the court, it would shame both her and him, undermining his credibility as a human representative. Jonathan felt a familiar tension in his chest, but he did not panic. Instead, he prepared. He reviewed her training, planned for contingencies, and discussed strategies with her. "They will try to test you," he said calmly. "But remember, their judgment does not define you. You have already proven yourself. Now we show them why they were wrong to doubt you." The air was cool, the alien flora glowing softly under the twin moons. The silence was comforting, a brief respite from the constant scrutiny of the court. "Jonathan," she said quietly, "do you really think they can change? Some of them, they seem so certain that I am unworthy. But humans have a way of showing strength in unexpected places. You've already begun to change their minds just by being yourself, and together we will continue to do so." The court's scrutiny, the nobles' schemes, and the political pressure would only intensify. But he also knew something else. Humanity's strength was not in obedience or conformity, but in courage, insight, and the ability to see value where others could not. And in the quiet determination of the one no one wanted, he had found a partner who embodied those very qualities. The next day, they faced the court together. The nobles had arranged a series of challenges designed to test intelligence, diplomacy, and composure under pressure. The bride moved with confidence now, her voice steady, her mind sharp. She answered questions thoughtfully, proposed solutions to complex problems, and handled provocations with grace. Jonathan watched with a mixture of pride and relief. The court's expressions shifted from disbelief to grudging respect, though some still held onto skepticism. But the tide was turning. The quiet girl, once overlooked and underestimated, was beginning to command attention and admiration on her own terms. By the end of the day, the court was buzzing. Whispers of approval mixed with lingering doubt, but one thing was clear: Jonathan's choice was no longer seen as foolish. Humanity's insight embodied in his decision had begun to shine through. As they left the chamber, the bride turned to him. They are starting to see me differently," she said softly. Jonathan smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Yes," he said. "And this is only the beginning. Remember, the court will continue to test us. But together, we are stronger than they imagine, and together we will show them why their doubts were wrong." Yet it had also revealed something fundamental: humanity's ability to see potential, courage, and worth where others could not. And in the quiet strength of the one no one wanted, he had discovered a partner, an ally, and a reflection of the very qualities that made humans remarkable. The challenges ahead would be greater, the court more vigilant, and the stakes higher. But Jonathan felt ready. With his bride by his side, he knew they could face whatever came next, demonstrating not only her abilities but humanity's unique perspective and unyielding courage. Together, they would prove that the value of a person, human or alien, was not measured by appearances, status, or popularity, but by character, intelligence, and the courage to rise above expectation. And with that truth guiding them, the quiet girl no one wanted began her journey toward recognition, respect, and the realization that sometimes the greatest strength comes from those who are overlooked. The day of the trials arrived. Jonathan and his bride awoke before dawn, the twin moons still hanging low in the sky, casting silver light across the palace gardens. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of alien blossoms, and a sense of anticipation filled the corridors. Today, the court had organized a series of challenges meant to test both the ambassador and his chosen bride. As they entered the central arena, Jonathan noticed the tension in the air. The chamber was vast, circular, and lined with glowing panels that displayed information, rules, and real-time observations of the competitors. A crowd of nobles, advisors, and officials filled the viewing areas, their eyes sharp, their expressions carefully neutral. Every gaze was scrutinizing, waiting for a mistake, a flaw, a moment of weakness. The first trial was an intellectual challenge, a test of logic, negotiation, and strategy. The couple was presented with a simulated crisis. Two neighboring Elari colonies had conflicting trade agreements, and tensions were escalating to the point of potential military conflict. The task was to resolve the issue diplomatically, proposing solutions that balanced the interests of both sides while preserving peace and maintaining trust. Jonathan studied the data, analyzing the situation carefully. His bride leaned forward, scanning charts and reports with meticulous attention. She suggested a compromise that neither favored one side excessively nor allowed tensions to escalate further. Her approach combined patience with clever insight, proposing contingencies that anticipated possible reactions from both colonies. The court watched in silence. Jonathan's heart swelled with pride. The bride had not only understood the problem but had devised a solution that was elegant, practical, and just. The nobles whispered among themselves, clearly impressed despite their previous skepticism. "This is impressive," one commented quietly. "She sees beyond the obvious." Her approach is unorthodox, but it is effective. The task required speed, balance, and coordination. Many humans would have struggled to adapt to the alien environment, but Jonathan's bride moved with careful calculation. She studied the patterns of the moving platforms, predicted their movements, and used her intelligence to navigate the maze efficiently. Jonathan followed her, using a combination of agility and observation. Together, they reached the central platform in record time. Some nobles muttered about luck, but Jonathan knew better. She had relied on analysis, patience, and quick decision-making, skills humans prized and honed throughout history. The third trial was the most intimidating, a test of diplomacy under pressure. Several influential nobles had been briefed to provoke them, to attempt to manipulate, embarrass, or corner them in discussion. The arena simulated high-stakes negotiations, with unexpected complications introduced at every turn. The first provocation came quickly. A noble accused the bride of being unqualified to advise humans, citing her lack of status and previous social neglect. She responded calmly, outlining her perspective with reason and clarity, deflecting the insult while proposing solutions that advanced the discussion. Jonathan watched in quiet admiration. This was precisely the moment he had anticipated. Her ability to remain calm, to think clearly under pressure, and to address challenges without emotional reaction was extraordinary. Many humans might have reacted with anger, defensiveness, or hesitation, but she embodied the qualities humans had always relied on: insight, courage, and intelligence. The trial intensified. Another noble introduced a complex scenario involving interstellar trade, cultural disputes, and environmental consequences. The bride quickly analyzed the situation, proposing a plan that balanced competing interests while maintaining ethical considerations. Her reasoning was meticulous, her logic sound, and her presentation clear. Some nobles exchanged uneasy glances. The whispers grew quieter, replaced by astonishment. It was evident that she was not only competent but exceptional. Jonathan felt a sense of satisfaction. The choice he had made, the one no one else wanted, was proving its value in real time. But the trials were not over. The court had one more challenge in store, a test of ingenuity and adaptability. A simulated crisis erupted. An artificial intelligence system controlling the palace defenses had gone rogue, threatening to trap both humans and aliens within the arena. Jonathan and his bride had to resolve the situation quickly, using both alien technology and human reasoning. The AI created unexpected obstacles, shifting walls, energy barriers, and cryptic logic puzzles. Many competitors would have panicked or relied solely on brute force. Jonathan's bride studied the patterns, analyzed the logic, and suggested a coordinated approach. Together, they disabled the system's override mechanisms while avoiding the dangers it created. The court erupted in whispers, some of awe, others of disbelief. Jonathan knew that this trial had been designed to show their incompetence, but instead, they had demonstrated teamwork, intelligence, and ingenuity. By the end of the day, the couple had completed all trials successfully. Some nobles remained skeptical, but the general sentiment had shifted. The bride, once overlooked and underestimated, had proven herself in every aspect of the tests. Jonathan's choice, initially questioned and ridiculed, now appeared inspired. Yet victory was not complete. Behind the scenes, a faction of nobles had grown resentful. They feared the human ambassador's influence, worried that his choice of an overlooked bride would challenge the traditional hierarchy. These nobles began plotting more direct action, sabotage, manipulation, and schemes designed to undermine both Jonathan and his bride. Jonathan sensed the tension, aware that their trials were only the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, navigating the politics of the court, protecting his bride from hidden dangers, and proving that humanity's values, compassion, insight, and courage, could influence even the most advanced civilization. In the following days, Jonathan and his bride focused on preparation. She trained in diplomacy, science, and strategy, absorbing knowledge quickly and applying it with precision. Jonathan guided her, offering advice and encouragement but allowing her to develop her own methods. Together, they analyzed the court's structure, the personalities of influential nobles, and potential threats. The bride's confidence grew. She began to speak more boldly, to challenge assumptions, and to offer perspectives that no one had considered. Jonathan watched as the court slowly began to take notice. Whispers of admiration replaced some of the whispers of doubt. It was subtle, but it was there. One evening, while reviewing strategies in the quiet of the ambassador's chambers, Jonathan received a discreet message. The faction plotting against them had escalated their efforts. Their plan involved creating a crisis that would force a public confrontation, designed to embarrass the bride and challenge Jonathan's judgment. Jonathan shared the information with his bride. She listened carefully, her expression calm but focused. "We will not let them succeed," she said firmly. "We have proven ourselves in the trials. Now we show them that their schemes cannot shake us." The faction had engineered a scenario in which a simulated diplomatic disaster threatened to escalate into interstellar conflict. Nobles watched intently, expecting the bride to falter under pressure. She remained composed. Jonathan observed her closely, noting the quiet determination in her eyes. Together, they analyzed the situation, formulated a plan, and executed it with precision. Their solution was not only effective but innovative, balancing diplomacy, strategy, and ethical considerations. The court watched in stunned silence. The faction's plan had failed spectacularly. Instead of undermining the bride, it had highlighted her abilities and the wisdom of Jonathan's choice. The nobles who had doubted her now regarded her with a mixture of respect and reluctant admiration. After the crisis, Jonathan spoke privately with his bride. "Do you see?" he asked. "They thought they could shake you, but you have shown them that strength is not measured by appearance or status. You have proven that courage, insight, and character matter most. It is not about being accepted by everyone. It is about trusting oneself and proving worth through action. You have done the same here." Despite the success, Jonathan knew that the challenges were far from over. The court's politics, hidden rivalries, and potential threats from unscrupulous factions would continue. But he also knew that together, he and his bride had demonstrated something fundamental: humanity's ability to see value, courage, and potential where others might fail. As they left the arena that evening, the bride turned to Jonathan. They are starting to respect me," she said softly. Jonathan smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Yes," he said, "but respect is not the end goal. We must continue to act with integrity, courage, and insight. That is what humans do. And that is why we will succeed, no matter the obstacles ahead." Jonathan felt the same quiet pride he had felt on the day he first chose her. Humanity had a way of seeing what others could not, of valuing courage, intelligence, and insight over appearances or tradition. In the quiet determination of the one no one wanted, he had found a partner who embodied those qualities, and together they had begun to demonstrate that humanity's values could influence even the most advanced civilizations. As night fell over the palace, the couple walked through the gardens, the twin moons reflecting on the glowing flora. Jonathan knew that the next trials would be even more challenging, more political intrigue, more subtle manipulations, and perhaps even danger. But he also knew that with his bride by his side, they could face anything. Together, they had proven that strength could come from unexpected places, that courage and intelligence could surpass status and appearances, and that humans, guided by empathy, insight, and determination, could show the universe a new kind of power. And as they stood beneath the alien stars, Jonathan realized that the journey was only beginning. The court might continue to test them, factions might plot against them, and challenges would arise that required skill, courage, and wisdom. But he had confidence. Humanity's greatest strengths, creativity, insight, and courage, would guide them, and the quiet girl no one wanted would continue to rise, proving that sometimes the most overlooked individuals are the most remarkable of all. The calm of the early morning in the Alari Palace was deceptive. Jonathan awoke to a message delivered in silence, a faint glow appearing beside his bed. The palace's security system had intercepted communication intended only for him, a warning. A faction of nobles, frustrated and humiliated by the bride's success in the previous trials, had escalated their plans. They were not satisfied with testing her abilities anymore. Now they intended to create a public disaster that would embarrass both Jonathan and his bride, undermining her hard-earned credibility. Jonathan read the message carefully, his mind already calculating potential scenarios. The nobles' plan was subtle, a mixture of sabotage and manipulation. If executed correctly, it could turn the palace against them, force them into a corner, and make them appear incompetent before the court. He looked at his bride, still asleep but slowly stirring, and felt the familiar surge of protective instinct. "Wake up," he whispered softly, shaking her gently. "We have a problem." "A faction is planning a trap," Jonathan explained. "They want to create a crisis that will humiliate us in front of the court. We have to act carefully, and we have to act together. Trust me, you are more capable than they realize." The first sign of trouble came in the form of the palace's automated defense system. Normally a marvel of technology, the system began behaving erratically, energy barriers shifting unexpectedly, doorways locking without warning, and alarms sounding intermittently. The nobles claimed it was a technical glitch, but Jonathan recognized the signature of manipulation. The system had been tampered with to create chaos. The bride's eyes widened slightly as she observed the situation, but she did not panic. Instead, she analyzed the changes, noting patterns and inconsistencies. "It's not random," she said quietly. "Someone is controlling the system. They want us trapped." Energy barriers rose and fell unpredictably, sensors misfired, and some nobles attempted to interfere with their path by providing misleading instructions. Yet the bride remained calm, her mind sharp, her reasoning precise. She suggested alternative routes, anticipated the system's next moves, and coordinated their actions with Jonathan. For hours, they maneuvered through the palace, solving problems on the fly. At one point, a corridor suddenly collapsed, forcing them to find a higher route across suspended platforms. Many would have faltered in panic, but the bride calculated the trajectory, timing, and balance required to leap safely. Jonathan followed closely, adapting to her guidance. Finally, they reached the central control chamber, the heart of the palace's security systems. The manipulations were clear. Someone had designed a series of obstacles meant to ensnare them and publicly humiliate them before the court. Jonathan and his bride worked together, combining human ingenuity with careful observation of the alien technology. They identified the hidden controls, reversed the tampering, and restored order. When the energy barriers receded and the alarms ceased, a stunned silence filled the chamber. The faction that had plotted against them had expected failure, but instead, their scheme had been undone. The court had been watching remotely, witnessing the couple's calm, precise, and intelligent response. Murmurs of disbelief spread through the nobles, replacing the confident smirks of the conspirators with unease. Jonathan's bride turned to him, a mixture of relief and satisfaction on her face. "We did it," she said softly. "Yes," Jonathan agreed. "We showed them that manipulation, fear, and deception cannot overcome insight, courage, and teamwork." It was clear that the couple had turned a potentially humiliating situation into a demonstration of competence and intelligence. In the following days, Jonathan and his bride continued to navigate the complex politics of the Alari court. Some nobles attempted subtler forms of sabotage, spreading rumors or testing their patience with provocative questions. Each time, the bride responded with calm reasoning, insight, and tact. Jonathan supported her, offering guidance but allowing her autonomy, reinforcing her confidence and demonstrating their partnership to the court. One afternoon, during a session on interstellar trade policies, a noble attempted to bait the bride into making a mistake. The scenario involved a multi-system trade negotiation, with hidden clauses designed to trap her in a legal or ethical dilemma. Many advisors assumed she would falter under pressure, revealing her inexperience. Instead, she remained composed. She identified the hidden clauses, addressed them directly, and proposed solutions that satisfied all parties while maintaining ethical standards. Jonathan watched silently, impressed by her ability to remain analytical and calm under pressure. The court murmured in recognition, the whispers of doubt fading further. As evening approached, Jonathan and his bride walked through the palace gardens to clear their minds. The twin moons reflected softly on the glowing plants, and a gentle breeze carried the faint scent of alien flowers. "You've handled everything remarkably," Jonathan said. "I am proud of you. Do you see now why I chose you?" Humanity has always thrived in similar circumstances, when the odds were against us, when others doubted us. We rely on ingenuity, courage, and trust in our abilities. You've shown the same qualities here. The system showed unusual activity in the palace archives, where sensitive information was stored. Someone had attempted to access the data without authorization, a direct act of sabotage designed to implicate the bride or create chaos. Jonathan analyzed the situation quickly. "This is deliberate," he said. "They want us caught off guard to make it appear as if we cannot handle the palace or its systems, but we are prepared." The sabotage had triggered several defensive measures, including energy locks and false alarms. The bride's analytical mind identified patterns in the interference, guiding them safely through the obstacles. Jonathan provided strategic support, coordinating with palace security and anticipating potential traps. When they reached the archives, the breach was apparent. A small team of conspirators had attempted to override the security systems to access confidential data. But Jonathan and his bride had arrived before any significant damage could occur. They neutralized the breach, secured the information, and identified the culprits. The court, monitoring remotely, was stunned once again. The faction had intended to embarrass them, but the plan had failed spectacularly. Jonathan and his bride had not only prevented disaster, but had demonstrated remarkable skill, composure, and intelligence. That evening, the court convened for a formal session. Salara, the princess, addressed the assembly. "The actions of Ambassador Cade and his chosen bride have proven more than mere competence. They have demonstrated foresight, courage, and unity. Attempts to undermine them have failed, and in doing so, they have shown qualities that are commendable and worthy of respect." Jonathan's bride remained calm, though her heart raced with the intensity of the day. Jonathan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You have handled yourself brilliantly," he said. "Every challenge, every scheme you have met with intelligence and courage. This is a testament not just to you, but to humanity's ability to persevere." "I understand now," she said. "It's not about what others think of us. It's about what we can do together with courage and clear thinking. You are remarkable, and the court is beginning to recognize it." Jonathan supported her, offering advice and guidance but allowing her to shine on her own merits. As they prepared for the next round of formal challenges, Jonathan reflected on the journey so far. His choice, once doubted and criticized, had proven wise. The bride, once overlooked and underestimated, had demonstrated intelligence, courage, and resilience. Together, they had faced sabotage, manipulation, and the scrutiny of the court, and had emerged stronger and more respected. Jonathan knew that the coming days would bring even greater tests, more political intrigue, strategic challenges, and perhaps threats that went beyond the court. But he also knew something else: humanity's strengths, ingenuity, courage, and the ability to see potential where others could not, would guide them. And with his bride by his side, the quiet girl no one wanted, he felt certain that they could face any challenge the Ilari world might present. Together, they were more than a couple. They were a demonstration of humanity's unique strengths, and a symbol that courage, insight, and integrity could prevail even against the most sophisticated opposition. The palace was unusually quiet as dawn broke over the twin moons. Jonathan and his bride stood at the edge of the central courtyard, preparing for the final trial. Unlike previous challenges, this one was not a test of intellect, diplomacy, or endurance alone. It was a culmination of everything they had faced so far. The court had arranged a scenario that combined strategy, negotiation, and potential danger, designed to challenge them both and determine their place in Elari society. The bride's hands trembled slightly, but her expression was calm. She had grown through every challenge, facing sabotage, manipulation, and the court's scrutiny. Yet the stakes today felt different, more personal, more immediate. Jonathan placed his hand over hers. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "we face it together. You've proven yourself time and again. Trust yourself and trust us." The trial began with a sudden alert. An alien research vessel, supposedly neutral, had gone rogue near the Elari system. Its actions threatened not only strategic assets but also civilian colonies. The task was to prevent escalation, resolve the crisis diplomatically, and ensure that no lives were lost. Jonathan studied the data quickly. The situation was complex. The rogue vessel's communications were erratic, its behavior unpredictable, and the motives unclear. Many would have panicked, but the bride immediately began analyzing patterns, cross-referencing previous intelligence, and predicting potential outcomes. "They are testing our judgment," she said quietly. "If we act too aggressively, it could provoke conflict. If we act too passively, we risk civilian safety." Jonathan added tactical adjustments, combining human problem-solving with her analytical insight. The court watched remotely, anticipation high. Nobles whispered, some skeptical, others curious. Few expected that the bride, once dismissed as inconsequential, would lead the solution to such a complex crisis. The delegation boarded the vessel under her guidance. Negotiations were tense. The rogue crew resisted initially, but the bride's reasoning and calm demeanor gradually broke through. She spoke with clarity, empathy, and logic, addressing the crew's fears while ensuring they understood the potential consequences of aggression. Jonathan observed silently, allowing her to lead. It was a lesson in trust and partnership. Her insight, combined with human intuition, created a synergy that even the most experienced Elari diplomats could not match. Slowly, the rogue crew's stance softened. They agreed to return to safe coordinates and cooperate with the authorities, averting immediate danger. Back in the courtyard, the court erupted into quiet murmurs. The crisis had been resolved without bloodshed, and the solution had come primarily from the bride's initiative. Jonathan felt a surge of pride. Humanity had a way of recognizing potential and valuing ingenuity, and here it was demonstrated in its purest form. But the final trial was not yet over. The faction that had attempted sabotage before still lingered, seeking one last chance to discredit them. They introduced a final challenge, a debate among the highest-ranking nobles about the ambassador's judgment and the bride's suitability as a representative of humanity. The session was designed to provoke conflict, test patience, and undermine confidence. The bride approached the debate with calm determination. She anticipated the arguments, prepared counterpoints, and addressed accusations with logic and composure. One noble attempted to belittle her past, pointing out her earlier social neglect and lack of influence. She responded without defensiveness, reframing her experiences as lessons that had honed her insight, courage, and decision-making abilities. Jonathan observed closely, his presence silent but supportive. The court listened, many shifting in their seats as her eloquence and confidence became undeniable. She spoke not to impress, but to demonstrate capability, integrity, and wisdom, the qualities humans valued most. By the end of the session, the court was divided no longer. Recognition replaced skepticism. The faction's attempts to humiliate them had failed spectacularly. The bride, once overlooked, had risen above doubt, proving her value and the wisdom of Jonathan's choice. Salara, the princess, finally spoke, her voice resonating through the chamber. "Ambassador Cade has chosen wisely. His bride has demonstrated qualities that surpass expectation, insight, courage, and resilience. She embodies not only the strengths of her people, but also the values that humanity brings to the galaxy. This union is worthy of recognition and respect. You've shown them everything they needed to see. I am proud of you. It is measured by courage, insight, and the willingness to act. Together, we demonstrate that clearly." In private, Jonathan and his bride reflected on the journey. They had faced tests of intellect, strategy, diplomacy, and character. They had navigated sabotage, manipulation, and the court's scrutiny. And through it all, they had emerged stronger, not just as individuals, but as a team. "You've grown so much," Jonathan said, looking at her with admiration. "You've proven yourself in ways I could only hope for." And now the court, the people, and even those who doubted us have seen it too. In the following weeks, Jonathan and his bride traveled together across Elari territories, meeting other leaders, participating in negotiations, and observing interstellar diplomacy firsthand. Everywhere they went, their teamwork and insight were recognized. The bride's unique perspective, shaped by a life of being overlooked, allowed her to solve problems and mediate conflicts in ways that surprised even the most experienced Elari officials. Jonathan often reflected on the larger meaning of their journey. Humanity's strength had always come from seeing potential where others did not, from valuing courage and ingenuity over appearances, and from trusting individuals based on character rather than popularity. His bride had embodied those qualities perfectly, demonstrating the universal truth that greatness often lies where it is least expected. During a quiet evening on the palace balcony, Jonathan looked out at the glowing alien city beneath the twin moons. "Do you see what we've done?" he asked. "We've not only survived the court's challenges, but we've shown the galaxy a different kind of strength, one built on insight, trust, and courage." "I never imagined this would happen," she whispered. "I was just someone no one noticed, and now. And together, we've shown them what humans value, what we can accomplish, and why courage and insight matter more than status or appearances." "And this is just the beginning," he said. "There are more challenges ahead, more opportunities to demonstrate what humanity can do, but now we know we can face anything together." Humans were no longer seen as simple allies or diplomats. They were acknowledged as beings with unique insight, courage, and the ability to inspire change even in the most advanced civilizations. The bride's journey from overlooked and underestimated to respected and influential became a symbol of what humanity could achieve. Even the nobles who had doubted them learned a quiet lesson. They saw that value could not be measured by appearances, that insight and courage mattered more than tradition, and that humanity's perspective brought a new and essential strength to the galaxy. Jonathan and his bride continued their work, their partnership growing stronger with every challenge. They faced political negotiations, interstellar disputes, and delicate diplomacy together. Yet every step they took, every problem they solved, was a testament to the values that had guided humanity for generations. Courage, insight, empathy, and the ability to see potential where others did not. And in the quiet strength of the bride, the one no one had wanted, they had discovered a power that transcended expectation, a proof that sometimes the most remarkable individuals are those who were once overlooked. Under the twin moons, in the glow of an alien city, Jonathan realized that the journey they had taken was not just about survival or recognition. It was about demonstrating humanity's enduring qualities, teaching a new civilization the value of insight, courage, and partnership, and showing that greatness often comes from unexpected places. His bride looked up at him, her eyes filled with determination and pride. "Do you think they truly understand now?" she asked. Jonathan smiled, holding her hand firmly. "Yes," he said, "they understand. Not just what we've done, but what humanity represents. And together, we'll continue to show them." And they had done it together, as partners, allies, and exemplars of humanity's enduring strength. And in that realization, Jonathan understood a simple, unshakable truth. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in what everyone wants, but in what no one else recognizes. And that power in the quiet girl no one wanted had changed everything.